Would you believe it? After all these years of, high school guidance counselors telling everyone they got to go to college, seems like major corporations are dropping a college degree as a requisite for employment. My next guest is a professor of political science at Suffolk Community College in New York and a campus reform higher education fellow. Nicholas Giordano, welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me on.
All right, so what's the deal? I mean, why? I mean, I thought a college degree was a golden ticket into corporate America.
Well, it used to be a golden ticket, but then the businesses and the companies realized that the students are not coming in prepared for a workforce, that the colleges have not given them the tools necessary to actually be able to interact with other people and complete the necessary tasks. And so what's the point of a college degree when you could give students technical skills to do certain jobs?
Or, there was a time when companies had apprentice programs, or the old story of I started in the mailroom and now I'm the CEO, right? That companies would bring people in at low-level positions and they would see how much, responsibility can you hit? Are you reliable? Are you picking things up? Are you kind of getting what we do around here? And then if so, you might get promoted. It wasn't that you came in with a fancy degree, and I'm not trying to poo-poo going to college. I went to college. You teach at college. But something is happening in colleges that are making the graduates no longer desirable.
Well, it's because the education system has lowered standards for the last 30 years, and students have simply been cycled through the system where they haven't learned how to write effectively. They don't learn how to communicate with other people. And so when you examine it from that perspective, you realize that if students aren't learning the foundational material in marketing or business or any other degree program that you're in, well, then what's the point of having these students go to college? Why not just put them into the workforce and teach them those tools? In every single profession that you're in, it's not like you're ever going to turn to page 132 in the textbook and find your answer in the real world. In the real world, you have to apply realistic solutions to problems. And if students aren't learning how to think critically in college, if they're not learning how to interact with other people, well, then what's the point of college? And I think a lot of businesses have come to that conclusion. But even worse than that, I think the entitlement aspect of it, the woke indoctrination that's taken place, these businesses, the bottom line is profit. And if you get a bunch of people in the company that are basically toxic to the workforce, that's going to hurt your bottom lines. And these companies realize that. So they're tired of the useless degree programs that are being offered, and they figure they could train the students themselves to be good workers.
Yeah, I'm looking here at a list of courses that you provided from, let's say, UCal Berkeley. Adulting, the right to be lazy, that's an actual class. I thought that was just part of college. Shifts in Marxist thought, how to solve Rubik's Cube. Pokemon Academy. Wow, these are obviously, you know what it is? I always thought when I was...
You forgot about the whiteness of Barbie.
Oh, sorry.
That is a course. The whiteness of Barbie is a course, a college course.
Marvel Cinematic Universe and Hogwarts, the wonderful wizarding world of Harry Potter. I remember the old joke about a music appreciation class. You want to hear some music? I'd appreciate that. Yeah, and those are usually your silly electives. But you know what? One thing I thought, and I was there when they called it political correctness in the early 90s, that being presented with things that you didn't agree with or maybe shocked you or you weren't ready for, you had to learn how to deal with it. If you got up and you had to learn how to make a presentation in class, you had to write, I learned how to write argumentatively. And if you presented something and it didn't go over well, you had to come back and do it again. So if you're getting a woke college kid who's been coddled their whole life and told they're special and every feeling they have is to be nurtured, when they get into that presentation situation in a company they may have gotten a job for and they get shot down, you can't go, I don't want to be here anymore and you're a big bad meanie. No, you might have to go back and work on it. You might have to go back to the team, start all over again and make your presentation. You can't be a baby in corporate America.
No, you can't. And I think one of the worst aspects is with all the diversity, equity, and inclusion programs involved in the grading, we're supposed to be told that we have to understand the background that students come from, understand that they may be late for class, they may hand in assignments late, and we shouldn't penalize them for that. So what's that teaching the student body? That's not preparing students to be good, productive workers in the workforce. It's telling them that essentially they don't have to show up to work on time, that they could look at their little phones every 15 minutes. And that's where I think companies have had enough. I mean, the fact is that we now have people going for interviews, and as they're being interviewed, they're pulling out their cell phones. And in my classroom, I mean, I have to compete with these cell phones. I shouldn't have to compete with a smartphone. But in my class, I actually discipline them. They're actually going to get punished and lose points when they use their cell phone in my class. But in a lot of other classes, it just goes along. And so we're encouraging bad behavior and we're encouraging laziness. And I think that's part of the problem that happened in the college system, where companies are saying, hey, we need workers that are actually going to work.
Well, truth be told, some companies are woke. And, you know, I could imagine being somebody who's...
But they're woke because of the college system.
I can only imagine trying to conduct an interview with someone. So you have a business degree from SUNY Albany. Tell us about what you're... Well, I'm prepared to come in and make this a diverse, inclusive workspace where everyone feels appreciated. Right? Well, we make widgets here and we market them. And we have to make money on them. Like, you know, like you can see the complete disconnect between some of these kids are coming out of business school with the belief their job is not to make a product that people want or to provide a benefit to shareholders. Their job is to come in and make a space that's welcoming to everyone.
Well, even worse, you have gynecologists that are becoming doctors that can't differentiate between a male and a female, right? I mean, this is what's going on in society. And so if it's me and I own one of these businesses or I'm the CEO of a corporation, I don't want an employee like that working for me, where we can't distinguish from anything and where every single thing that you say may be a complaint to human resources. Listen, I remember working in the private sector and public sector. And if I did a report, my boss didn't like it, there was a lot of F-bombs being thrown out, and the report would get thrown in the garbage and I'd have to start all over. There's no safe spaces in the real world. It might exist on college campuses, but when you get to the real world, there is no safe spaces. And unfortunately, we have too many that think that college life is going to be equal to what it's like in the workforce, and it's not.
Look, I'm not against some measures that have been taken by some companies where they may have gotten rid of cubicle walls or have a 5 o'clock, you know, craft beer thing that happens. I mean, you know, you think about the days before they might have had a coffee maker. I mean, you know, creature comforts are okay, but you've got to draw the line at coddling.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, we've had this culture of entitlement for decades, right? The customer's always right, even that, down to that. Then everyone gets a trophy, and it just got worse and worse over the years that as college professors now, we're told that we have to basically work for the student, that the student gets to dictate classroom policies. And we saw in New York University, I wrote an article on Campus Reform about it, where they complained the professor was too hard. They fired the professor because he was too hard. Well, how are these students going to be able to manage in real life if they can't sit there and take a class that's hard? Listen, you can have good teachers, you can have bad teachers. But in life, you can have good bosses, you can have bad bosses, and you have to deal with it.
Tell that to my daughter. My oldest daughter is in middle school. She likes this one, doesn't like that one. I said that's life. Get used to it. You're going to have people you work with you like. You're going to have people you work with you don't like. They aren't your group of friends. I got to leave it there. Thanks so much for joining us.